Hey, Lauren, how are we doing today?
Hey, doing good.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you for
glad
having me
you,
on.
yeah, I'm glad I reached out and glad you wanted to kind of chat. You and I met within the last year through actually a sales training course, right? Kind of a boot camp scenario. Um, yeah, it was through Sales Sniper Boot Camp. They're a really good company, so I don't mind name dropping them. But you and I connected pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of were at a stage in your life of going, "Hey, I'm looking at these two areas of my life. Do I want to do sales? Do I want to do my own business?" And you've kind of blended both of them together. So tell me about like where are you at right now?
Yeah. So right now in this very moment, I am actually doing sales, which I actually have to thank you because all the practice calls that we did together really helped me. And it really gave me confidence to do these high ticket sales because I had done them before that training that we went through, but not to the amount that I've done them in the past couple months. And like you just really helped me with that. But
You're
and
welcome.
I don't think I've ever really got a chance to really thank you for that. But so I am doing sales, but one of the things I'm doing with it's one of the businesses I'm working with is helping them to kind of streamline the process because they had a salesperson in their business for a couple of years and then they just started scaling.
Okay.
And anytime a business scales, all of a sudden they have new issues. And so I'm like seeing, because I've worked in so many other businesses where they can streamline things and make it smoother and easier. And okay, here's a problem. How do we solve that? So even though I'm in as a salesperson, my background in operations is really coming in handy to help like with the whole process. So
So is that where you're kind of going, like with your entrepreneurship of, hey, this is gonna be my focus of, I don't want to be technically a sales rep. I want to come into a business, fix everything behind the scenes to just stream
yeah,
really powerful.
yeah. So I mean, being a creative, I have a million different directions I want to go, but I think that that's something that I really do enjoy. I really do love helping people with operations, and I've worked in many different types of businesses, mainly the online coaching space, and helped with, let's say, fixing their financial side of things and making sure they're collecting payments and things aren't just getting lost. Or does everybody know what they're supposed to be doing? Like having a team lead, how to manage the team kind of thing. So overall operations more than just the sales. But I think that's really where I want to go next is helping streamline that for different businesses.
When I had my own brick and mortar fitness business. I had my own online high ticket help people reverse rheumatoid arthritis. Offer was 8K. That's really what got me into the online space. And I really fell in love with it and the ability to work remotely, meet
Yeah.
people all over the world. It was really awesome. Some of the clients that I do coach right now, it really is amazing, like how many solopreneurs are out there like you and I,
Yeah.
and
That's
they are scaling.
hmm
And like you said, they really have no idea what it takes in the back end to put like those SOPs, those operating procedures for people to follow. And it's like it's like chasing chickens, right? Like good luck trying to do it. And I see so many businesses that's where they fail, and they
yeah.
really think the magic thing is, hey, running ads is magically going to make my business successful, or if I put a setter in my business, it's going to make it successful, or putting a closer in, it's going to make it successful. Well, if you don't have leadership and management skills, how do you manage those people?
Oh
If
my
you don't know how to run ads, like how is that going to be successful? So what are some of the key areas that you really see when you work with a client, like right off the bat, of, wow, these are the big bottlenecks or red flags we need to solve right away?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my approach, I would like to kind of get a like a bird's eye view of the business. Like, what are we selling? How many people are on the team? Because I've worked with teams of like 5 people and ones that are like 30, 50, and then even up to like a couple hundred. And just understanding what is the communication style, who's in charge of what, and kind of just really getting that big overview picture, and then going down into the nitty gritty of like the details, like what's actually happening on a day-to-day basis, and really talking with the team members to figure out like where are the problems. And the more that I can get a sense of just what's already going on, what are our current processes, then what needs to be changed, and what's the problem. Like, oh man, we just can't seem to get to XYZ, or this thing is really taking a lot of time. Like, oh, what if we just change this one thing? Like, where can we make a template of something that, if you're always sending out a text message, let's say for sales people, like there's certain, I've worked with many different CRMs. So like Go High Level is the one I'm currently working with. You can create templates so that if you're on a sales call, let's say you want to send out a message to the next sales call because you want to push that, like you need to have one scripted that you can just click that so that you stay present in your current call. You don't want to get distracted trying to like find the person's name and number. And
Correct.
where can we make sure that the psychology is not getting messed with, because like a process could be streamlined so that someone can make that sale. Like all of it is about psychology, right? If you're bringing in new clients, if you're keeping the clients that you already have happy, you're keeping the team happy, like all of it comes down to like making sure that you protect that, and that will either fall apart or come together based on your processes. So I mean, it's like it's overlooked, but it's so important.
I couldn't agree more. Like one of the offers I'm working on right now is growth team.ai. It's Travis Steffen. And so he's actually started and scaled 7 different businesses. Last one he sold for like 75 million. But he helps subscription-based businesses put in and architect viral loops rather than, so many people just focus on, hey, running ads are the only way to generate business, which isn't true. There's a lot of ways to do it. So how does like a company like Dropbox go from an unknown to a household name? And some businesses, as they scale, they're not prepared for the fulfillment or the back end pieces. So right now, I'm actually helping them build out all the marketing up front, the messaging, the sales process. We've been in this for 8 weeks. And actually, him and I were just messaging today that the next 2 weeks, we actually might put everything on hold because the market is kind of dictating certain things. It's giving us serious red flags of where we need to put pieces in place. And when you're talking about going into a company with like 50 to 100 people, how, like as an owner, like you're obviously going in and fixing some major problems. How does an owner even have enough time to even try to solve those problems on their own?
Oh, they don't. And that's where it comes down to teamwork. And that comes down to like, you have to have people in their places that you can trust to lead the teams, because one person just can't do it all. And with that, the teams I've seen that are larger, it becomes even more crucial that it's like, hey, everybody has to be held to this high standard, like show up on time, especially if we're all remote. Like you got to be on the team meetings. You got to like be paying attention. You got to like just really be an A player. And I've seen teams where people are just not showing up as their best selves. They're like, just not taking it seriously, and it starts to crumble. And, but I guess I know, like I have this background where I've done, mastermind events and planning those, and then, in-person things and then remote, like there's just so much of it comes down to having a good team that's there for you to see what's going on, communicating where the problems are, and everybody knowing what they're responsible for. And it's interesting you're talking about there's a red flag you found in the market. Is it a thing of they need to shift the market or?
So there's actually a couple. So one of them is we have to break the paradigm with some people when they're coming in because they think like we're a standard agency, like we're going to run ads from on social media. And if that's your frame of reference, if that's the only way to grow your business, we have to break you out of that and say, no, Travis has like 23 different models that he can apply to a company. So doing a deep dive into the company to see what they're at and what their business model is, which 1 or 2 are going to be the most successful to really get things going. And then also, you bring up psychology of a team, also the psychology of a client. What's going to keep a client that's going to stay with you the rest of their life, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Fitness, I started that 20 years ago. I still got a couple clients that I've worked with for 20 years, right? It's obviously not, I'm teaching them something new, like a push-up or a new diet, but how do you get that type of retention is one of the lifebloods of a successful business. And then how do you get those people to refer people to you that are going to be lifelong as well? That's where things maximize. So we have to, break out of that paradigm, number one, but then also number 2 is them actually understanding what they're getting. Some of the people, when they come in, and I see this happen all the time. And, when I kind of talk about, how do you step away from being a commodity and become a necessity? People have to understand the difference between you in the marketplace. And that's one of the challenges that we're redoing up front, is really getting pieces in place so people understand what this is, so they can really grasp their brain on, so they can make the best decision for themselves. Because his price point beats anybody else out there. The results are going to beat essentially anybody out there. And I'm always a big proponent of, if you're building a business, if you only got one stream, You can only build it so high. If you want to build a successful business, you have to essentially build a city. So we need 4, 5, 6 different skyscrapers that go up. So that's what he does. So that's some of the things that kind of popped up. You brought up something interesting when you talked about A players.
Mhm.
And when I've started with working with some companies and kind of done some of the back, internal checks like you have, some of the people they have are A players, but because they didn't have any operations, any process, they
Mhm.
get disillusioned, lazy, and actually the company failed them rather than the other way around. So what type of things have you seen there? Like you coming into a company, are you guys, hey, these people have to go because they're not in, or we need to coach these people back up to the A player they are?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important, like, because you do have to have the systems in place for people to have the chance to be able to succeed, right? Because if you give, even an A player like a, let's say in baseball, if you give them a bat that's not good or something, like they can't, hit the ball kind of thing. Like you got to make sure that you're showing up as the business owner, supporting them the best way that you can, and finding out what do you need in order to be more successful. So that you take responsibility for like, where is it on me that I need to show up that way? And then, obviously, yeah, if someone's just like not even, their heart's not in it, they're just obviously not showing up, then yeah, you got to let them go. But I've seen sometimes where, someone they might be really driven, really ambitious. They really want to help the company. They have all the right things. But there's some disconnect because people have different personality types. And usually the people that start a business have a very different personality type than the one that's going to run in the business. And getting that communication style is super important. But like not always being quick to replace people or make them want to leave, because
Agreed.
it takes so much more time to train someone than to just fix what you already have. If it's fixable, like depending on, what that relationship is. If you have a good atmosphere and a good environment where people feel valued, they're going to want to, stay longer. But if they don't feel valued and they're mistreated, then obviously they're going to jump ship as soon as they can. So I think, it's just multi-parts, and it's understanding, like you have to have a good sense of like, who am I in this? If you're a business owner, usually they tend to have like narcissistic tendencies come usually with someone who's willing to be the forefront, especially if you're someone on camera, the face of the operation. So where can you know what I mean? Like what things can you dampen, I guess, or have someone else, like maybe someone else is more empathetic. So then that's your right hand person to be able to work with people that are more, you know what I mean? Like there's just different personality types. So you got to find a way to work within that ecosystem, because not everybody can be a leader. You need some people that don't necessarily want to be a leader, or else everybody's trying to start their own business and they're jumping ship, right? Like
What
finding that good ecosystem.
Yeah, and for me, if I'm looking at working with a business, culture is going to be one of the number one things I'm going to look at,
Mhm.
and super important. It's one thing I always built within my companies was, having a certain culture, and so making sure that people are culture fit. But you bring up a really good point of, firing an employee.
Mhm.
That actually can be one of the most expensive things for a business owner, right? And you and I, coming from having aspects of our lives of being a sales rep, where we could be we're working for a company, we're working from home, or we're working remotely, all that great stuff. Firing us or letting a sales rep go, or if
Mhm.
you're let's say the company you're working with right now, let's say they have 4 sales reps, 2 are underperforming, so you fire both of them. Well, the other 2 can't maintain that call volume, so you're gonna have to limit that. Now you have to spend the next 1 week to maybe 2 months finding the next 2 that are really good fits.
Yeah.
Hopefully they work out. Those sales reps might take 1 day to 1 month or longer before they actually get their stride and start closing. All of a sudden, and then the time and energy to train them, all of a sudden you're talking 90 days that maybe your revenue got cut in half or even worse. And so how do you really help someone judge going, hey, this person's got to go, or we need to really focus on coaching these people back up to where they were?
Yeah, I think looking at like their past experience, like were they closing at a high percentage previously? Did they have like several months that were really good and then they had a few bad months? Is that necessarily the rep? Is it the market or like holidays or other things that could be affecting it? Something that could be going on with that particular avatar as the potential client. So those are all things to consider. And, can they come back, or is it time to go? Like, are they just, maybe they're mad and they just aren't willing to get over whatever anger they have, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think, if you haven't ever done sales, it's an emotional roller coaster. And I think sometimes there's business owners that just think, just get on the call, just sell. And it's like, well, if you haven't done it, you don't know. There's a lot to it.
Yep.
And it is better, I think, if you can fix a problem, if you can provide them more training, or, figure out what's really going on, what's really the problem, and solve that first before letting them go. Or making it where they just want to leave on their own. Like, how can you keep them?
Yeah.
And there's so many parts of a business, right, that you can fix or break.
Yep. 100%. And I think sometimes business owners don't even know where to start when things aren't going the way that they're at.
Yeah.
And there's no way for them to step back and objectively look at everything. And, you coming into a business, be able to really just look at the data, look at it without emotion, without stress, calmly go through it piece by piece by piece to really find what's causing an issue. I mean, it's priceless. And it's not even quantifiable to where that's going to put a business in 30 days from now or 12 months from now for doing that. If we step away from the sales piece, are there other aspects that you look into the business when you're looking at operations? And, I guess one of the reasons why I'm asking the question, over the last 10 years, I've seen in the marketplace, everything's about putting someone to a program, putting you into a bunch of calls. I think the fulfillment has really killed a lot of people, and why so many people fail. It's not that maybe the culture program they got into was bad. The fulfillment side broke and failed them.
Yeah, I've seen that just crash huge companies like that were doing really well, and then they weren't fulfilling. That's a huge thing. Making sure that you're actually providing the content that you say you're going to, or the results and things like that. Making sure that there's someone like a customer service type person, whatever you want to call them, the concierge or whatever, but someone that's making sure people are getting taken care of. Because if you have, let's say you're in a business where there's several coaches, they might be so busy focused on their coaching calls that they're not looking at, is someone getting left behind? Is someone angry? Is someone gonna, I don't know, go out and just like talk shit about the company basically?
Yeah.
So it's like, and what's the exit process? Like, what's the beginning? What's the end? Like, how do we know where someone's at in that process? It's so important.
I couldn't agree more. And I've invested in some companies where the learning experience for me wasn't so much the reason why I hired them, but I learned so much by watching their back operations of going, I will never do this to one of my own clients. And also I will never work for a company I know their fulfillment is like this. When you go into a company, there's a lot of key pieces from, money coming into just your simple operations, your support team, your sales team. What are some of the key areas that you focus on, or do you focus on all of them?
I mean, yeah, I like to really picture the whole, big, broad picture, then go into the details. And it's usually whatever they think is the problem I start with, but it's not always what actually is the problem. So they might think it's just financials, like, hey, because some of these programs, they start with like, let's say it's a 3-pay. Well, nobody's catching, like they bring in the first one, nobody's keeping track of the second and third payments, and it's just getting lost. And it's like, well, that's tons of money that you already had someone say yes to that you're letting go. Yeah. Or just, working with different financing, things like that, not having processes around that. But then it's like, okay, so we fix the finances, but wait, what's over here? What's going on with this, maybe a management thing, or maybe just keeping track of like who's in charge of what. I mean, I've just streamlined so many different areas. Like one of the things I did was masterminds, and so I worked with Jeff Walker and basically helped him to set up his masterminds for like the entire year because it was like a template. They wanted basically the same kind of hotel, set up those contracts, had certain checklists, like anything that we can, if you can make it templated, but also, like I love to customize, like the artist in me is like, let's make everything different and unique each time. But it's like, well, that's not the best business model necessarily. What can you streamline and do the same each time? And what can you make unique and customized? It's just, there's so much that goes into a business. And I will say in the beginning, I used to think that like it was just the one person you see on camera, right? Like not this whole team behind them.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the things that I've learned going into this. Like it takes so many people to make this happen. Like it's not usually just one person.
No, not at all. And I think too, like a lot of entrepreneurs, you have to have a really clear distinction of what you want your business to look like, what that's truly going to be, what type of support you're going to need there to make it successful for. I always put my clients first, like what's going to make sure that they get the result, the support, and they're trusting me with their money, with their life, with their business. So I need to make sure that that's number one. Then number two, how do I make sure that the business is set up to do that for them, and then worry about myself? And I think that's flipped a lot within the industry. It's all about how much money can we get in? Can I scale to $1 million as fast as possible, not worrying about all the people that you're burning?
You're gonna go like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, Scott, one of the other offers I'm working with and kind of partnered with, you know, we go into businesses, we start with a 12-point process where we're looking at cost, we're looking at client acquisition cost, we're looking at price point. Do you have a dominating marketing position? Are you in a unique selling proposition? All of these key little points. And normally if we change each one by just like a little bit, like 5%, we can get a huge 30-40% boost in overall revenue. And then we go into a huge 40-point deep dive into all aspects of their business, because it's just that compounding effect, right? And I think so often people just, like you said, is they think they have a problem here. When you actually get in, you realize that wasn't the problem at all. It was all these other points that were causing an issue here. And you could try to fix it all you want, but if you're not fixing the front end stream, it's going to completely break really quickly. You know, looking at you working for, you know, getting hired by a company to come in and do stuff, what type of companies do you really want to work with? Because I turn clients away all the time. Like I'm nope, there's not a fit for whatever reason, we'll refer them to somebody else. So who is somebody you really want to be working with?
Yeah, I mean, I think I really love the coaching industry, you know, provided online, that specifically. I love when they want to do something that actually truly helps other people. Like it's not, I don't really resonate with things that are just kind of like a product or like an e-com, SaaS, things like that. More like helping someone to achieve results. It's just, you know, it's like, it's when you're doing it for the right reason, not just all about the money. I mean, I do love when people are a little bit more creative and open to creative ideas, just because the artist in me loves that. But I mean, I guess it just comes down to like the personality of the people, and if we vibe and have like just it's a good feeling. And you just can kind of tell that right away. And if I can actually truly help them. And that's the other thing, is I've seen like the broad spectrum of people who are like just too like kumbaya, like they're not really about the results. They're not focused on the numbers enough. And they're like, hey, let's all just like have a good time. And it's like, well, that's great, but like we do have numbers to hit, or else like the whole company will go down. So like everybody here has rent to pay. And if you don't care about the numbers, like that does matter. But then you don't want to be someone who's like on the other side where it's just like numbers. We don't care about the people, like just get them in the door, you know? So finding that balance.
I agree. And that I've turned away some people because we just don't jive in a personality thing. And that's not going to work. They're better off me referring them somewhere else, or the purpose, you know. And I've been in some groups where business is failing. And like you said, like the whole answer to the problem was, I need to get in better energy alignment. I don't care how happy of a person you are, how much you kind of go through whatever process you want to, it's not going to change the data and the mechanical aspects of Facebook to bring you more leads or to magically have your revenue go up. And so I think there's a lot of different alignment things that I really search for in a client. You know, if I come to you and I want you to work with me and come into my business, like what's the first week really look like from my perspective, having you come in? Because hey, it's my business. I don't want you to go through my stuff. Right. Right. You kind of have to bury your soul a little bit. So like, what's that first week look like when you come in?
Honestly, I've always been really good at getting people to trust me, and just like they open up all of their software and give me all their passwords. And I'm a little bit like, wow, you trust me so soon. But like hopefully it's just because like that is one of my biggest things on social media. Like I just tell you like pretty much what's going on in my life. Like I think, you ask about like what makes you stand out, what's different. It's like I'm just like, this is me, and I'm not really hiding much. So that you get a sense of like you can trust me. And then like, hey, let me look and see, and like maybe shadow someone. So sometimes I'll like, let me just shadow what you do on Zoom with and see what they're doing. And as people are telling me their processes, they'll also share their problems. Like, oh man, yeah, but there's only this thing that never makes sense when you do XYZ. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'll like, the way my brain works is it doesn't always come right away, but then all of a sudden like a gear will click. That's what we need to do. And so that's like, I think my thing I've had ever since I was young, like seeing the answer to a problem that for some reason other people just don't see, but you got to work with someone who's willing to like implement those new strategies. But yeah, the biggest thing is just kind of seeing what's already going on and maybe actually working in the business to figure out what's everybody doing, and then removing myself, hiring people that can do what I'm doing and training them.
It's interesting you have that same natural skill set. It was one of my God-given gifts too, of being a visionary, very strategic, but also pattern recognition, and see things and put things together that a lot of other people can't. And so some of the things, like you said, some of it you look at and like, how's no one seen this before? Right. And like, well, it's obvious to me, but a lot of other people, but there are times where all of a sudden it's like 2 days later, I'll be in the shower and your brain can actually unplug. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, that's the fix. And then you can go back and kind of implement things. Building a business, there's a lot of very specific processes. There's foundational things, but each business also is different. You do have to be creative sometimes and adjust things for that business. And I think that's really huge. And I think anybody that would hire you and have you come in I could see them looking back in 3 months, 3 years, and basically going, that was the best decision ever made, because you came in and just totally flipped their business to a 180, solved a lot of problems that they didn't have to do. And that's a really, again, kind of an unquantifiable thing when you're looking at trying to build a major business.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done it for all sorts of different businesses where, like tripling sales and being the top salesperson across the whole country for like a franchise type thing. And then people being like, how did you do it? And it's like, well, I took what we already had and like, how can we make it better? How can we streamline this? How can we get creative here? So.
Yep. And I had to do that with my business. I've had to do that with other businesses. And sometimes too, as when I've been on some accounts being just a sales rep, sometimes I have to remember and know my role at the same time. Like, I'm not here to fix their business. And if they don't want to hear it, I'm just here to do sales. That's fine. I will do that role. But my passion really is in coaching people, solving problems, fixing it. It's one reason why I love being a coach. It's another reason why I love doing sales, because in reality, I'm helping people solve their problem and helping them actually get a result for it as well. So it's very rewarding in multiple ways. Now, I know that both you and I have appointments coming up, so I want to make sure I respect your time. And it was awesome catching up with you, Lauren, and having you hop on. And I would love to go deeper into more what you do at some point in the next couple of weeks or month as well, if we can line up the schedules.
Yeah, and definitely. And I'm excited to see what happens next in what you're doing. It sounds like some amazing, great things are happening. I love it.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I think there's going to be the rest of this year is going to be really fun, really interesting. And part of being a solopreneur and entrepreneur, and also partnering with people, we know how many different things come flying at us, good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm looking forward to all of it. So I appreciate that.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome.